Hockey fans, welcome to NYI FYI with Sean Croft and Chris Hessel.
It is a new day. Works out. Hey, we got stuff. I'm shocked.
You know, it was terrible to have to go on.
And here we on NYIFYI.com, live on YouTube, NYIFYI, Sunday, 2014, 6 of NYIF, September. It's what the Islanders tend to be asking themselves in the third period.
Well, we're going to have a lot to talk about today. What a week. We would have had so much to say as we go into and then they're going to come back and there's, you know, especially after certain games this week that had some unfortunate outcomes. But we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's
I've been sick of this.
I know you and Snow is you don't get along.
No,
but,
I hate Snow. Hate it.
So I'm sure last night was a thrill for you to, you know, see even more snow coming down.
Ugh,
it's just supposed to be only thing, but of course turns out to be a couple of inches. But either way, here we are, and we're on time. Not even the snow could make YouTube go slow. Forget it. Ustream, we still be playing games right now.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully we make this last.
Yeah, knock on wood. I don't want to speak too soon.
MW says, here we go again with the shaky audio. Hopefully it gets better as we go, like last week. I think what we noticed was the less we played the controls, the better the sound was, and after the first few minutes, it got better. Well, we're going to give this, a couple of weeks. So hopefully this works. I mean, we like this more because we get started on time, but if you can't hear half the show, if you're, in the box right now, then what's the point?
Yeah. The other thing that we realized is that I think a lot of times Ustream used to put on their own advertisements that would cut us out, and I remember seeing comments in the chat room that people would say, "Oh, there's another Ustream advertisement."
That would cut out half the show.
That would cut out, for 30 seconds, so you wouldn't, it would be just like losing the audio. And
we never got a cut of that. At least with YouTube, if we decided to monetize, they would give us the opportunity to do it and collect.
Well,
Ustream just takes everything.
That's the thing with using a free service. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we'll see. Hopefully the kinks will be worked out, and some of the lagging will subside, as we get into this show, and just stick with it is the only thing I can say, because we noticed last week when we watched ourselves after the fact, after we were done with you guys, we saw at what point it started to get better. The quality was a little bit better. It wasn't as laggy. So hopefully within the beginning, this goes smooth.
Yeah. And if you're listening through your iPod or your iPhone, you have nothing to worry about.
Have anything.
He said it's better already. Took about 2 minutes. I'm sure just buffering and getting everything up and running. So that's what we're hoping to do. So yeah, that's right now we have the the YouTube open on our other computer, so we're able to check in with the chat here, or as it comes up as a comment, but there's a little chat thread.
Yes.
It looks like a chat thread, at least on the right side of the screen. So go to nyifyi.com. You can either watch through there if you don't want to participate in the chat, or if you have something you want to add, of course, just click on the screen and it'll bring you right to YouTube. Or of course you can go through the NY YouTube channel, and it's all right there.
You can leave comments on the Twitter too. We got the Twitter up and going.
I think you're manning Twitter.
I am. I see that we already got comments that we'll address in a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start off by reading Monday afternoon's game against the Philadelphia Flyers. It's a rare win for the Islanders. Afternoon matinee, especially against the Flyers. This one coming in a shootout by the score of 4-3. It's the same thing that we have talked about week after week after week.
Mm-hmm.
Goals early, goals late, and the inability to keep a game even or hold a lead. Not so much holding a lead in this game because we did come from behind, but goals late, goals early. No goals in the first period. Second period, 1:26 mark. Matt Reed scores shorthanded, because the power play is so good. Tavares comes back and scores a power play goal at the 9:26 mark, and less than 2 minutes later, Wayne Simmons takes the lead. So, this is what we're talking about with the Islanders, just the inability to sustain without falling behind or coughing up a lead almost immediately. And then Matt Reed scores again at the 18-16 mark, so they have all the momentum going into the third period.
And the thing that frustrates me with both of Matt Reed's goals is you have Anders Nielsen in the net. He's a 6'5" goaltender who went down so early on both of those shots, and you got pucks going over his shoulder. The first one that went over his far shoulder, I mean, that was just inexplicable. Didn't help that there was some real bad defensive play on there that really allowed Reed to pretty much just waltz right into the crease area. But in both cases, Matt Reed always seems to score against the Islanders, and of course, much to the chagrin of you, scoring early in the period and late in the period. Especially after the Islanders had played pretty well in that first period. You had hope that they would come out stronger than they did here.
They outshot the Flyers 43-29, but still, just I hate to say it because they did put up 43 shots, but they didn't take enough of them. It's too much passing on the power play, and after a while, it looked like the old Islanders.
Yep.
I don't want to be responsible for not scoring, so I'm not going to shoot.
And let's be real, you had Ray Emery in net, and Ray Emery, listen, he's solid goaltender, solid backup, but he's definitely been beatable this year. I mean, Mason seems to be their guy, Ray Emery, he's the guy you got to take shots on, and I didn't think the Islanders was taking enough quality shots earlier on in the game. Obviously, as the game wore on, some of those chances did get better. But the way things were going, this game looked like one of those games we would say, well, they played well enough to win, but here we are again talking about another loss, and boy, it was anything but that.
Brock Nelson at the 18-16 mark of the third period, and then Kyle Opozo late power play goal. At the time, his 20th of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And the Islanders fighting back, and really, Kyle Opozo, this was his game.
This was his game, and you know what? It's funny. You mentioned the power play, too much passing, too passive. When the Islanders had this late power play chance, I thought this game was over. I said they're not going to score late in this period, crunch time, the way that the power play's been going, of late, with some chances that have just seemed to go by the wayside. To get 2 power play goals in this game was really important, obviously, but I thought for sure I was sitting there with not that I wanted to have a defeatist attitude, but you mentioned it yourself. I mean, some of the chances that they had in this game, they certainly had a lot of chances to score and kind of squandered a lot of them earlier on in the game. I didn't think that Oposo would end up getting this goal. I didn't think that they would end up scoring on this power play. But there's something to be said for Oposo this year when it comes to putting the team on his back, because you've seen him dominate games, and his team win some games that he's taken over in.
Yeah. I think the story of the week, and we'll talk about it as far as play on the ice goes, has been that Andrew McDonald and Josh Bailey. I mean, Bailey at least had that goal the other night against Pittsburgh on the breakaway. So he gets a little bit of a
pass. And he
pass.
actually really made a nice pass to Nelson here, a blinded pass. You know, it's the two good things he's done in weeks.
But for the most part, this game, Bailey just is kind of just there. And what I noticed about Bailey in this game in particular, I was at the game with my dad, was Bailey gives up on plays, and he's just very slow to get to the bench. I saw a line change, and he was taking his time getting to the bench. He wasn't even skating. He was just gliding. And I believe the Islanders were on the power play, and they cleared it out. Philadelphia cleared it out, and it was down, coming across the board, and it's 3 feet in front of Josh Bailey. And you would think, I know he's trying to get off, and he's kind of dogging it to get off anyway, but you would think he'd take, he'd at least, handle the puck a little bit, feed it into the zone, and keep the play going. No, he just let it slide right past him, and he watched it slide past him as he glided to the bench. Like there was no hustle, almost like, well, whatever, it doesn't matter how long it takes me. Really, he looked bad in this game aside from that assist. And Andrew McDonald is, you know what? We've got so many defensive problems. Trade him now. It doesn't matter because there is almost nothing that he brings to this team defensively, hardly offensively. I mean, yeah, he's got a lot of assists, which is great. But when you're getting ice time with Kyle Opozo, Thomas Vanek, and John Tavares, it's hard for you to not have, your assists through the roof. I mean, as of that power play goal from Kyle Opozo, he had 20 assists this season. It's not quite through the roof, but it's not bad either. But the thing is, the Islanders' problem isn't even so much offensive defensemen because we can score goals, even though, McDonald technically is our only offensive defenseman. But he brings nothing defensively to the table, and he is such a hindrance defensively that he's part of the problem. If you can get anything for him, well, get rid of this guy.
It's funny you mentioned Josh Bailey and the lazy plays, because that's really, in the past few years, that's what we used to get on Kyle Oposo for, is the lazy plays, being slow, getting back to the bench, and you still see him do it sometimes. But Bailey and Oposo were the guys that we were all banking on to really improve their play after they both had strong performances in the playoffs. Oposo's taken the Josh Bailey has dropped the ball. What frustrated me from Bailey in this game, you mentioned, some giving up and whatever. On the power play, I noticed a lot. He was working from the half wall, very, nonchalant with the puck, losing it off his stick a lot, not looking for passes. He was in a fog the whole time, it looked like. And on the man advantage, when you're a team that's got these offensive weapons like the Vaneks, like the Tavares, so the team hands you to score and do it. I understand trying to get a guy going. We've seen Bailey make appearances on and off of the power play, and to me, it was frustrating to watch him, be a big part of squandering those opportunities. And it's funny that you mentioned that with Andrew McDonald, because we're noticing he does things to help us, and he does things to not help us so much, and it's, they're trying to find that balance. And this is where having Lubomir Vishnevsky coming back can be huge, because like you said, it'll take some of the pressure. And we had a question from Koof86 on Twitter that said, assuming he returns, is a rusty Lubomir Vishnevsky a better fit over Donovan at this crucial point of the season? And at this point, I would have to say so, because you're watching Donovan and DeHaan. They're young defensemen that have limitations at this point. I've liked what I've seen out of DeHaan as far as moving the puck. I've liked some of what I've seen out of Donovan. He's a guy whose minutes need to be limited, and also some of that pressure needs to be taken off of Andrew McDonald, because let's be real, he's also in a position that he doesn't belong in. He thinks he belongs in that position, and we'll get to him later when we talk about what his asking price is. But Andrew McDonald thinks that he is a top pairing defenseman, but he hasn't shown enough to prove that he is that for this team. So these two guys are guys that I agree with you. Every night they're finding ways to, okay, well, that was good, that's encouraging, and then 5 minutes later they'll do something that takes away from that, and you go, this is why, these guys aren't consistent. He scored in this game. You talk about it, Brock Nelson, consistency. And that's what you're looking for. If Bailey was providing something, even when he wasn't scoring, I would feel better about him. In the past, we've seen him up the physical play. He hasn't even really done much of that.
No, he's had a couple of good hits in this week, but when he goes 4, 5, 6 games and he's got 4 shots on goal, that's an issue. MW says when he's gone, this means AMAC, and we don't replace him. ... Well, look, we don't.
That's another problem.
Well, we don't know what they're going to do in free agency, and I think we're also going to see Griffin Reinert next year. So I'm going off the assumption that Wisniewski is going to be back. So that's 1. Reinert is 2.
Straight is still here.
Straight is still here. Hickey's still here. That's 4. And then DeHaan and Donovan, assuming that they are brought up, for the entire length of the season next year. That's your 6.
I think that this team.
No, I hope that I don't want to move forward with that 6.
Neither
but
do I.
We have 6. That's what makes him expendable to me.
And I'll tell you, I think that one of those guys is going to end up going away in a trade. For maybe a more established defenseman, a guy who brings an element that this team's missing. Listen, we keep hearing Dallas was wanting to trade guys like a Goligoski. There's going to be a trade out there that'll present itself that should the Islanders do what they're supposed to do this offseason, and that all starts and ends with Vanek, and we'll talk about that. Then it changes the complex of what this team will look like, and I think that at some point something's going to give with some of these guys. The jury is kind of still out on Donovan and actually DeHaan. So I've liked what I've seen out of DeHaan more this year than Donovan. And we'll just see how Donovan progresses. But this is that's going to be key for him. And it is a crucial point in this season, and it's a shame that he struggled the way he has because the Islanders are in a position where they really can't afford to have situations where guys are going to struggle night in and night out, and they need to, and Lubomir Wisniewski coming back is huge, and Travis Hamonic, if he's skating
and
again,
Hamonic too. How can I forget about Hamonic?
If he's skating, yeah, well, that's a good point. We both forgot about him. If he's skating again and he comes back sooner rather than later, I'd feel a lot better about this whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah, how did we forget about Hamonic?
No
idea.
I
guess because we haven't seen him. I mean, he hasn't really been a factor this year either. I mean, prior to his injury, he was brutal. So, yeah, we're going to get hammered back. I don't think that there's a lot of room for AMAC. Now, me personally, what bothers me now about Donovan and DeHaan, both of them is, it's their inability to stay in position. They tend to get out of position a lot, and I know they're young and they're hungry and they're learning, but they need to, they need to be concerned with getting back into position more times than not. While I appreciate the fact that you're going low to dig for pucks, I think we, some of our forwards should be doing that. The Josh Baileys of the world should be doing those types of things, not you, because how many times do you see these guys go low, and now there's a 2-on-1 going the other way?
And there's several players that haven't been doing this consistently. For only really over the last 3 weeks we've gotten the 4th line to be doing it, and that's their primary job. Zekis, and the one guy who I have to say who's been consistent with that this year is Cal Clutterbuck.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Guy's a gamer. I'll tell you, though, if there's a trade in the works to bring a more established defenseman in, and they give you the option to trade either DeHaan or Donovan, I'm trading DeHaan because
I think you would have to at this point.
Because
he's got some value again.
He has more value, and long term, I think you're with Donovan than you are with DeHaan because of DeHaan's injuries.
No, that's true too.
That may I want to give up on because right now it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other between the two of them.
Right.
But I would rather move forward with a healthy Donovan as opposed to rolling the dice on an often injured DeHaan.
Right. Now, let's be real. I mean, DeHaan still has a lot to prove. His value still isn't what it should have been, but it's better than it was. And, a lot of people thought that this guy wasn't going to amount to anything. I like what I've seen at the NHL level from him. I'm sure that there are teams out there that like what they see, too. There's a lot to work with there. The thing that gets me with DeHaan is he doesn't shy away from physical play. I mean, he's a smaller guy, but I tell you, he likes to muck it up with some guys, and that's encouraging to me because when you have defensemen that tend to be more on the offensive side of things, that's always a concern. And that's something that I didn't expect to see out of him at all. I didn't expect to see any of that. So I think at this point, obviously he could get you more, and I think that the Islanders are going to end up looking at dealing one of those guys, maybe even a Hickey. And I like what Hickey's provided, and I think he's been good on both ends of the puck over the last 2 weeks or so. But in the interest of trying to create a defense with more size, with more versatility, durability, one of these guys is going to have to go, maybe even two of them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be an issue that the Islanders try to address in the offseason.
Yeah. Tuesday night to the Garden, we beat the Rangers 5-3. Surprise, surprise. Minute and 2 seconds into the game, Rick Nash.
Well, terrible. We just spent time talking about DeHaan and Donovan. Not a good play by either of them there. Not a good play by Tavares getting, paying attention to the other man. Everyone focused on Kreider. Nobody focused in on Rick Nash. So as soon as he got the puck, you knew that was going in. Just the way that Nash has played this year, you knew that puck was going in, and sure enough, the Islanders fell asleep for the first minute of the game, like you said, and here we are again.
Yeah. Nash scored both goals to open the game.
And Dan Girardi made Amac look foolish on that, because you could see he faked Amac out, and Amac didn't know how the heck to defend against the long pass there.
And if
he got caught flat-footed.
And if this guy hits free agency on July 1, this is a name that I'm telling you, the Islanders are going to be linked.
Depends on his price.
They'll at least talk to him. You're going to hear this name linked to the Islanders.
He's going to be looking for something in the similar range of what Amac's looking for, and I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Then Matt Martin scores late in the first period, 17-22, his third of the season at the time. Chris Kreider scoring on the power play in the second period, and then after that it was all Islanders. Hickey, Colin McDonald, Thomas Vanek, and then Franz Nielsen icing it in the empty netter. In one of the more entertaining Islander-Ranger games, a good back and forth.
Very good back and forth.
If you really like to watch hockey.
The atmosphere, even the Ranger fans, it seemed like it was a quiet atmosphere, because I think everybody knew, even though they had the 2 goals in their game. I didn't notice any panic in their game after they got down to. They chipped away. They did the good things. They forechecked. You had a good goal from Colin McDonald. Another great one from Hickey pinching in at the right time with a beautiful pass. And now you're starting to see, they're making better decisions with that, when to pinch, and really, but from all angles. And they realized that with Martin's goal, they realized that the slot area was open. As the Rangers weren't covering the slot area, that's where you got to be to beat this team. And every one of their goals pretty much came from that slot area. And I thought that it was a tremendous game plan that they had in order to figure that out. Because in the past, we'd see the Islanders take all sorts of shots, but they really did a good job, I thought, of getting to the center of the ice, something that I was calling for a couple of weeks ago. But they battled hard in the corners and were able to get pucks from behind the goal line to that slot area, and all their goals came from that area.
Tim Smith, I could not agree more about AMAC. Not just not effective, but a detriment. Then MW says, "You're crazy. DeHaan has much higher upside. Donovan, who I loved in Bridgeport, may not be an NHL player, not even a close call to me. You keep DeHaan." And he's fine with dealing Hickey.
Yeah. We have also Andre at Filament Designs on Twitter saying he agrees with the comments on AMAC. If Vishnowsky comes back, we have to remember, though, it's 2 weeks for him to be in game shape, and he's 38 years old. And he is, and that's true. He thinks if you move AMAC at the end of the season, letting him go, Donovan's minutes remain, of course, if he's still on. And that's the decision that they're going to have to make, I think, between a Donovan, a DeHaan, and Hickey. Listen, AMAC, as Staple reported the other day, I keep alluding to it, AMAC's looking for $5 million a year.
Yeah.
And
Goodbye.
I am trying my hard to keep a straight face as I say that right now. I may burst out laughing when we talk about contract situations of Vanek and guys. Good Lord. Have fun, It's like, yeah. So, I'm perfectly okay with And I'm at peace with letting him go, especially at that price. I don't even know if he's going to get that from anyone.
Yeah.
Let alone, there are stupid teams out there. I don't think anybody's stupid enough to give Andrew McDonald $5 million a year if they've watched him at all this year.
Yeah. The game against the Penguins was almost a tailor-made Islander game. The only difference is we got the scoring going early. Michael Grabner at the 139 mark, followed by Brock Nelson. And what happened? Less than a minute later, Kunitz scores. Less than 2 minutes after that, Crosby scores. Because AMAC lets Crosby walk into the crease.
Most of Pittsburgh's goals came from terrible turnovers. And I'm talking, and forget about getting mustard on a pass. It was like weak attempts to get the puck towards the middle of the ice, to get it up towards center ice. Weak passes going right to Pittsburgh. And a lot of people were guilty of that, be it AMAC, be it Hickey, be it Tavares, be it Vanek. There was a lot of players, fan favorites or not, that were guilty of this. I mean, the Islanders' turnovers for me was the story of this game. And if you got a defense that's struggling to kind of find their way, and the Islanders are still picking up points here and there somehow without Hamonic, with Wisnowski kind of trying to get back on the mend. And of course, you look at that and you hope he's not trying to come back too soon, because it's obviously the timeline has shifted up a little bit than what it was supposed to be. If you're a team that's struggling on the defensive end and keeping guys, especially Pittsburgh, you can't make those turnovers. You have to be smarter with the puck, and I didn't think that this team was smart at all, given Pittsburgh's offense.
So now here we are halfway through the first period. What have we done? We got AMAC letting, debatably, very much up for debate, the best player in the league, quote.
I don't think that's really a debate, but okay.
I think it is. I don't think he's the best player in the league. I think he's a good player. I think that this league coddles him. I think that the officials are on his side. I think that if, and we'll talk about this when we talk about Vanek's quote from yesterday, I think that if the Penguins got the call that teams like the Islanders get, or any other team in the league that's not an original six for that matter, I don't know that his stats are as good as they are.
Oh no, I think they are. The guy's talented. I mean, you watch him with the puck on his stick and he's mesmerizing.
I'm not saying he's not talented,
but
I'm saying that he is given the opportunity to be very good,
yes,
more time than other players are.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, he's naturally he's good. I don't think he's getting 130 points a year because he's being handed it. Does it help some of it? Yeah. I think all things considered, if this league were reffed fairly, I'll say that.
Yeah,
I think
if it's
he's
fairly, do you want
to getting 120 points? This guy is just too talented.
But would you agree in saying that he's talented? However, he is given more opportunities than your average player.
He's given the benefit of the doubt more often than not. Absolutely.
That's my.
But I don't think that's why he's a good player. I don't think that makes him only good. I think he's a phenomenal player, regardless of all that other noise.
If I'm starting a team and I get the first overall pick, I'm not taking him.
Wow, that is
because it's not just that.
It's
his whining. It's the crybaby sore loser.
I'm building a team around him. Absolutely.
No, I'd build a team over Harris before I build a team over. I'd build a team over Stamkos before I build a team over Crosby. I'd build a team over Malkin before I build one over Crosby.
I would not do that. Absolutely not. The other ones you can make a debate for. I wouldn't build anything around Malkin, honestly. That's just me.
Crosby's not my guy.
Wow. Okay. Hey.
I'm not saying that he's not
for everybody.
I'm not saying he's not talented, but I'm saying that he's given the opportunity to be a superstar more than your average player.
He's a
even
superstar
more than
regardless.
your above average.
He's a superstar regardless.
Even more than your above average player. That's my opinion. But I digress.
But we digress.
So here we are halfway through the period. And already you've got the AMAC epidemic letting Crosby into the crease when really he should have just mugged him and taken an interference call or tried to muscle him. He just let him in.
It's like in basketball when you intentionally foul a guy like a Carmelo just to let him take the free throws. You're better off letting him take free throws. Right.
So you got that, and you got the Islanders coughing up a lead immediately. So it's here, and I remember, and I think I texted you, here we go again.
Well,
as soon as that puck went in.
With the way that Pittsburgh is, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're going to take a 2-goal lead early in the game, that's all well and good. Chances are they're going to come back. It's a 2-goal lead. It's early in the game. The offense is too good. So no, I didn't feel when this team had a 2-0 lead, because you could tell Poulin would have to stand on his head, and given the way the games have been, we needed that to happen regardless, because that's just how things, especially with the way that the defense is, right? But the thing that was frustrating was a lot of the offense that Pittsburgh created from the back end. You look at Ali Mata, stuff like that. Good players, but the Islanders got very mesmerized in trying to follow the Crosbys and Malkins and Kunitzes down deep, that you had guys that were leaving players up top open. And this is a Pittsburgh team that can adjust. They can create offense from the goal line. They can create offense from the blue line just as good. So if you're going to give them those opportunities, they're going to get there. The Islanders weren't tough enough when to sticking with their covers. They weren't paying as much attention. They weren't being smart. Like I said, the turnovers for me is what killed it. Too many turnovers I saw at center ice, and it frustrated me to no end. And they were making these turnovers early in the game, before they started giving up that 2-goal lead. And you knew that at some point this was going to come back and hurt them. Yeah. And as soon as Kunitz put in that goal, you said, well, it's only a matter of time, because now he's going. Crosby's going to go, because he always scores against the Islanders. And that was that.
Yeah. I mean, Poulin did not look great. The defense didn't help him. There's no way around it. So,
I mean, this looked exactly like it was out of the playoffs last year. This was a typical Islander-Penguin game with high offense and little defense from both sides.
So now the period starts. Bailey scores on that breakaway, and then Kyle Pozo scores, and you're thinking, okay, maybe we're the comeback kids again. We go on a 5-3 for 50 seconds. And we pass the puck.
Yeah.
And we pass the puck.
That drove me nuts.
And then we pass the puck. And then we pass the puck. And then we pass the puck.
This team had the chance.
I think they said in those 4 minutes that the Islanders were on the power play between the 2 penalties, I think they had 5 shots.
I felt better about this power play late in the game than I felt about the one against the Flyers.
Because you saw what they did against the Flyers, and you think, oh, they could do it. We could do it again.
And
you know.
Because you think it's a 5-on-3, it's this, they can do it. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's
Let's just keep passing the puck.
That's things that play people to no end.
And
Jekyll and Hyde with that.
And this is why when we eventually hire a coach for next season.
Hey, don't. This team is still in the conversation right now. I think he saved himself.
I hope not.
I think
we need a coach. But look, my point is, when we eventually coach, and we've had this debate before.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Do I want Doug Weight as the coach? I want Doug Weight as the coach over Jack Capuano. Over almost nobody else do I want Doug Weight as the coach. This power play is the reason why. Every deficiency you see in this power play, which is one of the worst in the league, this is what he has his hands on. And I understand that he is learning under probably the worst coach to ever make the playoffs in the history of the NHL, but Doug Weight was a power play specialist. That's what he built his career around. So how can you tell me that this power play specialist, simply because he jumps behind the bench with this awful coach, forgets how to run a power play effectively? He knew enough about it. He knew how to do it in his 17-year career. Now he just forgot.
And it's funny because I don't like the umbrella look on the power play that the Islanders use. I understand. When you don't have any offensive options on the back end, the umbrella works because you have one guy, back there, and that guy. But the Islanders are not using that to their advantage. That means you can have 3 guys down low, 1 guy standing in front of the net at all times, and I'm noticing they have a guy who drifts towards the side. He stands in front for a few seconds, and then he drifts to the side looking for the rebound. The puck hasn't even come off the stick of anybody who's either at the half wall or at the point. So, that's where it drives me nuts a little bit, is you want to see guys get to the front of the net more. Every power play that we've played, all these teams, and I just think that the Islanders don't do that enough. Forget about getting the puck to the net, because they have trouble with on their power plays. It's 5-on-3. The Islanders opportunities against Pittsburgh. They had some power plays on questionable calls that absolutely they should have cashed in on, and they were unable to. So it wasn't for that they weren't given the opportunities, but when you're dealing with trying to navigate turnovers and bad play and this and that and the other thing, you got to cash in on that. If you have one of these offenses with one of the best lines in hockey right now, 3 or 4 opportunities and they had 5 shots or whatever it was.
It's the Penguins. You assume they're not going to win the game.
Right.
You know Pittsburgh's going to get the calls. But for me, even more frustrating than that game against Pittsburgh, what is this thing doing? Was yesterday's game against St. Louis.
Oh, boy.
Vanek and Oppozo scoring early. Oh, but wait, we're the Islanders. So Tarasenko's got to score at the 17-17 mark. Then he's got to score again at the 1:17 mark of the second period. So we're going to blow that lead early and late goals and blow the... It's just decides, well, we got to protect this lead now, and they shut down, and they play conservative, and here we go again.
As opposed to playing a team like Pittsburgh, this is a 2-0 league that should have never slipped from their grasp.
No.
I like the same team, probably at about 50%, and he did not look good to me in this game at all. Hit a couple of posts or whatever it is, but he's not at 100%. He's hurting. Okay, he got hurt, against the Rangers in the game before. So he's their big offensive weapon, and he's hurt. Tarasenko's a phenomenal player, but they let him walk in twice on plays that they absolutely looked like they were a disaster. They lost him on that first goal. They turned around, and all of a sudden there he is in the hash mark. He was able to skate from the blue line to the hash marks without a guy within 10 feet of him. What, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is a talented player that you cannot lose. I don't care whether he hits the net with a lot of his shots or not. I know that's the big knock on his game. This is a talented player that they let waltz in. And it looked exactly like the Ali Mata goal from the game before.
Yeah. Third period rolls around. Islanders find themselves in a position to win the game. Less than a minute left. But you know what? I think everybody knew we were going to blow that game because we had the inability. You were waiting for it to happen. The inability to get the puck out of the zone, Poulin having to make too many saves, and looking terrible.
Yes.
I mean, half of the goals that didn't go in were just pure luck.
Yep. Now, that's what I said.
Shots going off the post.
I'm watching this, and everybody made this big deal about that save that Poulin made where he forget about a phenomenal save. That was just pure luck.
Yeah,
save was a nice save. I mean, he had to stretch out for that one. Looked like it hurt, but all the other ones I thought was pure luck. And the sin in this thing is, okay, you blew the 2-goal lead. Shortly, Zeke is McDonald and Martin, but then they were sitting on that, and that was something that drove us nuts 2 months ago. Sitting against a good team and
with
trying
a 1-goal
to
lead with half the game.
1-goal lead with half the game to go, and now you're looking and they're putting out Shattenkirk, Pietrangelo, final minutes of the game while you're running around with a chicken like a chicken without a head, and Poulin, like you said, who doesn't look great, in this game. It was a recipe for disaster.
And so Regan gets the puck, and he shoots it out way too quickly. He had much more time.
Man, Regan, he could have skated that out. He could have skated that out. I don't know what he was doing there. He's
gone after this season
too.
Course, he's another one that's
he may be gone before this season's over. But
7 seconds left in the... Well, it says 27 seconds. That's what the box score said, but it was really like 25 and a half if you were watching the game. So we never should have been in a position to go to overtime. But we went to overtime and witnessed aside from Game 4 last year, and I reference it a lot, when Morrow continued to smash Cizikas' head into the ice in front of an official with no penalty called, to witness, in my opinion, the worst call I have ever seen.
I cannot believe. When I'm watching some of these games, I tend to be pessimistic, and they're reviewing this, and I said, "There's no way that you overturn this. There's no way that this gets overturned." Yaroslav Halak skated to the door. He knew that there's no kicking motion there. I'm sorry, there is no kicking motion. Absolutely, the Islanders got robbed or
screwed.
If you're on Twitter,
here's the
bleeped because we've gotten some comments.
Well, here's the other thing that I don't understand. Vanek gets pushed by a defenseman. The puck goes off a skate that isn't even in the direction of the net. His skate
was kicked by Steen, if anything.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. He gets pushed by a defenseman. Well, of course he's going to move, but his skate isn't even moving in the direction of the net. So how is it a distinct kicking motion? Well, we just talked about this last week with the defenseman interfering with players in front of the net. We just talked about this last week.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And this is, I mean, I'm still looking for the right words for it because I sat there stunned after watching this. I had to watch it on DVR last night. So not knowing what happened until about 9 o'clock at night, I'm watching this game and I'm sitting there. The Islanders win the game as far as I'm concerned. And I'm like, what are they? Okay, we're going to review it just to make sure. And then they show the replay. Say, no, there's no kicking motion. Okay, good, game over. And then they call that off. And it was like, are you kidding me? I mean, you want to talk about ripping the heart out of you. Forget about the fact that the Islanders shouldn't have been there in this situation, that they should have won this game. Forget about that. They didn't, okay? And at the end of the day, both times, both ways, no matter how you slice it, be it they were terrible on the defensive end, they lost their intensity halfway through the game, fine. They should have never been in that situation, fine. I don't care about that. They were in that situation, and they won the game. They overcame that adversity and won the game. And then it's taken from them like this. Absolutely terrible.
And as soon as they took it away.
And the NHL has the nerve to post a video from game ops or hockey ops, whatever, explaining why they had to take away the thing. I didn't even watch the video. I don't know if anybody out there watched the video.
I'm not watching.
I have no interest in watching the video, and I had to sit there and try right after watching the DVR of this game. I had to sit there and try and get up to watch more NHL because I wanted to watch the Ducks and Kings. I didn't even feel like watching the game. I was so sick of the NHL last night because of this call that so frustrating.
Chat room here, MW. I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but this one has me scratching my head to say the
absolutely,
least.
I'm not one for conspiracy theories either. Earlier I was kind of not defending him, but I was kind of saying, well, let's not get too carried away on the Crosby stuff. You want to talk about conspiracy theories, though? I think that there is something here. I think that there is something here, and Thomas Vanek thinks that there's something here. And if you weren't aware of his comments after the game, he basically said,
let's just say he had the intestinal fortitude to speak his mind, which most players wouldn't do. And I wonder how long until the fine for what he said. How long until the fine comes?
He's going to get fined.
I bet you he does. And you know what? Every player in that locker room is going to contribute to paying that fine off.
Absolutely.
And the coaching staff should do it.
And
the ownership should do it. And Garth Snow should do it. And if they're not going to do it,
I think Garth Snow should come out and say something.
Yeah. And if they're not going to do it, then we'll run a Kickstarter and we'll fund it because this is ridiculous. But he's going to get fined because he spoke his mind. And why? Because he attacked Miss Pennsylvania himself and the organization that he plays for. Not so much him, but it's implied. Would you like to review what was put in the Twitter? Would you like to review what Vanek's quote was?
Well, I mean,
while we're recapping this game,
he pretty much said, I think it was a terrible call. He said there's no kicking motion there. There's no kicking motion, and he goes, I wonder if it's biased based on who we are. If we were Pittsburgh, he says, does that happen? I don't think so. Listen, Thomas Vanek, one thing we've learned, and we'll get to some of it later, one thing we've learned about Thomas Vanek over these, he's very honest. And if he's playing like garbage, he'll tell you he's playing like garbage. If the team's playing great, he'll tell you this is good, but I don't like this. He saw something garbage in that overtime yesterday, and he called it for what it was, garbage.
Yep.
A lot of respect for Thomas Vanek today.
Tons.
And
I'll
I'm
tell you,
glad that somebody said it.
Yeah.
Somebody relevant said it. I'm glad that a superstar in this league said it.
Yeah, because that's what you needed.
And you're right. There are players that are thinking it, but because of fines and this and that and the other thing, and you don't want to. And listen, I'm usually one that says good teams find a way to overcome that and win the games and this and that and this, But that was absolute garbage. Because you know what? The Islanders did find a way to win this game yesterday.
And this guy...
It wasn't ideal, but they found a way to overcome the adversity and win the game.
This guy should be a captain, which they're not going to do if he's not signed to a well, I don't know, Amac's a captain. They should take it away from him and give it to Vanek, in my opinion.
We'll see what happens in the future, but we can get to that.
All right, let's predict these 3 games, and then we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about Vanek first, because that's the big talking point here. Tomorrow we host the Boston Bruins, and I think we lose.
Against the Bruins?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to win that game. We're going to win that game tomorrow night.
Okay.
Against the Bruins.
Wednesday's the Yankee Stadium game. We got 2 games against the Rangers. One on Wednesday, one on Friday. And I think we're going to lose one of these games.
Oh, we're splitting this, absolutely.
It's just, do we win at home, or do we win on the road at the Garden again, or are we going to choke at Yankee Stadium on national TV? And I think we're going to choke at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I don't think the Islanders are going to win the Stadium Series game. They'll win the one in the Garden, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they'll handle this outdoor thing very well.
No. Especially because
it's going to be a good game that I think is going to have a lot of scoring.
And the Rangers, their advantage, aside from, at times being the better team and having the at least having the goaltending, they've played a Winter Classic.
Correct.
They've played an outdoor game. They know how to get up for an outdoor game.
Yes, they know how to handle the whole thing. I think a lot of these Islander players, they're young, they're wide-eyed. I think they're going to get caught in the whole emotion of the thing, and a couple of bad plays here, trying to force a bad pass, especially given the conditions of the cold weather. I think that they're going to do a couple of bonehead things that'll translate to them losing that game.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk about Thomas Vanek. You're listening to NYI FYI on NYIFYI.com.
NYI FYI. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Sean, and you've been listening to me talk about Cardboard Memories in Comac for years. A lot of you have checked it out, and that's awesome. But for those of you who haven't, what are you waiting for? Cardboard Memories has everything you want. Sports memorabilia, movie memorabilia. He's got old press passes, old pins if you're into collecting that kind of thing. If you need something authenticated, Scott is the guy to go to. I guarantee it. Look, I've added a ton of stuff to my collection, and there's nowhere else I'd rather shop than Cardboard Memories in Comac, in the Pepper Tree Commons. They got all the info right now at cardboardmemories.com. You've got to check them out.
Have a question? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a comment? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a concern? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Need a date for the night? You might want to look somewhere else. But when it comes to hockey, let your voice be heard. Check out the forum at NYIFYI.com. Chat with hockey fans from all over the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Membership is free, so log on and be heard. The forum at NYIFYI.com.
Jack of All Trades Productions, Long Island's premier full-service post-production company, specializing in wedding videos, corporate videos, music videos, and film. Jack of All Trades Productions is there for all your post-production needs. Jack of All Trades Productions uses Avid Media Composer to bring finesse and style to your project, with experience in color correction, as well as sound editing and design. For more information, log on to JackyZo.com. That's JACKIZO.com. Again, that's JACKIZO.com. Jack of All Trades Productions.
11:50, 48 minutes to recap those games.
Well, a lot went into it.
So many storylines this week.
A lot went into it. And it was a good opportunity to kind of talk about the problems on defense and address what's going on. And we had at Filament Designs on Twitter, Andre, saying that he thinks that Straight could be the guy that moves in favor of keeping Calvin DeHaan, actually, because we gave up a lot of picks to get Calvin DeHaan, and that's also possible too. But as we established earlier, I think that you're going to see some movement on that blue line as we get up into the off season. We'll just see who it is. If it's one of the younger guys, if it's one of the guys that has limitations. Although I will say, for as much bashing as we did on him earlier in the season, Bryant Strait has been really good. And Howie alluded to it yesterday that really the way that things have gone, he has become the Islanders' best defenseman right now. And Bryant Strait's playing pretty well. He's timely hits, making some good plays. That speaks volumes to Andrew McDonald. And just to repeat it from earlier, I mean, he's looking for $5 million a year, and Art Staple even said in his article a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days, whatever it was, there has been no significant talks between the Islanders and McDonald after that, because that tells you what they think about that request. And
yeah,
to be honest with you, I had to stop. I couldn't stop laughing.
There have been a few preliminary, with a capital P, preliminary discussions with the Thomas Vanek camp.
Right. That's the other big question.
And you know what? I think Thomas Vanek so far has said all the right things. I think that people are in panic mode because they expect him to leave. I think people are in panic mode because nobody in the media wants Thomas Vanek to stay here.
People read into Thomas Vanek's. He's very frank when he speaks. Okay, and if you're reading at his quotes, you have to take them for what they are. There's nothing to read into. He's very honest about things.
Yeah. And he said, "This is a big decision for me, for my wife, for blah blah blah." For my family.
And he came out and said, for my family, and that's why term and money are important.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said term and money weren't important. He said that a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Absolutely.
And what have we been saying for weeks? Really, since this trade has been made, months. You can keep Thomas Vanek if you offer him market value, because he will take the max contract that he can't get anywhere else. He'll take that extra year. The other thing people need to keep in mind is, what is he going to do? Come out and say, "Oh yeah, I'd love to stay. I can't wait to talk a contract," and give the Islanders all the power to not offer me a max contract because they know that I'll stay because I love it here.
Right.
No, he's going to play it coy because he's going to put the Islanders in a position where they have to offer him a max contract because they fear that he will leave.
Right. Absolutely. And listen, I've seen some people say, and Staple even alluded to it. He's trying to figure out, is Vanek really worth $7 to $8 million a year on a long-term contract? For the New York Islanders, he absolutely is.
Yes.
Is he? He's probably worth closer, maybe to 6.5, a little less than 7, based on his talents and this and that. That he, is working well with Tavares and this and that. Was Brian Campbell worth the contract that the Chicago Blackhawks gave him? No, but you know what? It meant the world to them because it actually helped turn around that team. It was a part of something. Yes, they ended up having to move him. But that's what this would end up being for the New York Islanders. This would be that statement signing. This would be that guy that they needed to send the message to the hockey world is, hey, we're trying to win and we're pretty darn serious about it.
2 Stanley Cups later,
right.
Even though he didn't win those cups, it started the turnaround.
And it certainly seems like the good news is that the Islanders are willing to kind of look at that 7-year, $50 million contract that Vanek's on right now as the measuring stick. Snow can debate if he's worth that. That's fine. But the fact that that's kind of what he's working off of gives me hope that the Islanders know what market value is. And market value, you look at it. Just go out and look at it. Phil Kessel got $8 million a year. We kind of know that Vanek's not going to get that, but definitely probably will get similar to what he's getting now, the 7.1, 7.2, maybe even go up to 7.5 figure. D'Anfanouf got 7. Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau got their money, 6.75, 6.6. It's going to take a little bit more than 7 to get this done.
Right.
And if the Islanders can find that, maybe even if they only have to go 7, but can front load that that's all you have to do is offer this guy a fair market contract. Now your job got harder because, as I just mentioned, Thornton and Marleau was signed. You have the number 1 free agent on the market right now.
Right.
Now you definitely, bar none. This is a lot of these options have dwindled, and this is one that remains.
Yeah. Now,
it's very tempting for him to go test that market.
Now, listen to some of the other things that he said. He likes the players. He likes the environment. He likes the organization. He thinks that they've treated him very well. He likes playing with John Tavares, and he said that it was a lot of if I get to July 1st, meaning he's not ruling out signing before July 1st.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? It means he's got to get a max contract, at least as far as the years go, and you've got to pay him a little bit more than average, and you have to front load it.
Right.
That's a market value contract. You have to be willing to do that. If you weren't willing to do it from go, you never should have made the trade. That's what that means.
Andre brings up a great point.
You have to know going into this that this is what it's going to take to get the guy to stay.
Andre Filament Designs on Twitter brings up a great point that I was just going to get to. So perfect timing. He says, do you feel that the Isles will actually have an issue paying Vanek more than they pay John Tavares?
No.
You don't, huh?
No, because John Tavares is going to get his max contract.
Well, and this is what I was trying to get to. The Islanders in the past have had a hard time paying anybody more than what they were paying John Tavares. They tried to pay Ehrhoff what would have been a $6 million a year cap hit. They've offered big monies to Martin and Paul Martin and man, I can't remember his name, but Dan Hamhuis, there you go. But at the time they didn't have Tavares signed to whatever his to the contract that he's on now. You have to remember, and the Islanders have to remember, that these were completely different situations. Thomas Vanek is a free man to sign with 30 teams in the National Hockey League, or KHL teams if he really wishes to. John Tavares had one team that he could negotiate with legally at the time, without an offer sheet. There was one team that he could negotiate with legally, the New York Islanders. There is no leverage for a player as a restricted free agent. John Tavares is going to get paid $8 million plus a year on his next contract.
And he knows it.
And he knows it.
And he would love, and he's a humble enough guy. He will understand that the Islanders have to make this deal, but John, your day is coming. If you really wanted to make a statement, and if you really wanted to make him happy, and if you were that nervous about it, then you sit him down and you say, okay, here's the deal. We're offering him this amount of money. We're tearing up your contract, giving you a raise, and you can sign an extension, and you'll be the highest paid player on the team.
And that's what scares me with a Charles Wang-run franchise, is I think he has this view of a salary structure, and your best player gets paid X amount, and nobody will get paid more than that best player. So nobody can get more than the $5.5 million that Tavares is getting. I don't agree with that, and I don't think that that's how the Islanders have to handle this situation. I think Art Snow needs to approach Johnny, and if he's so concerned about it, and Johnny will tell you, well, I don't care.
No,
I don't give a flying hoot, because he knows in 4 years he's going to be due anyway.
Right. And so, he knows
3 years, whatever.
3 years he knows he's going to be due. He also knows that this franchise is built around him. They're going into Brooklyn into a new shiny arena.
Right.
The endorsements here are more than he's going to get anywhere.
Right. So that's really the elephant in the room. And
the same thing goes for Vanek. Vanek is going to get a ton of endorsement money if he stays here, and he will take that into consideration.
Now I know, teams like the Detroit Red Wings did this, with Nicholas Lidstrom. Nobody can get paid more than him. Okay, he's at $6.5 million a year. Okay, but to do it with a guy who's on a restricted free agent contract, it just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense because, like I said, on his third NHL contract, John Tavares is going to get a ton more money than what he's getting now. He's going to get a raise of about $3.5 million. He's going to make $8.5 million, okay? And that's coming 3-4 years down the road, and I don't think that he would have an issue. I think my fear is that the Islanders would care more than John Tavares would care more. And like Andre says here, if John Tavares really cares about winning, he would say, yeah, I don't care. And John Tavares does care about winning.
He cares about winning. He doesn't care
about the money. Right. The real issue here is Snow. I saw some comments on Twitter yesterday from one of our blog box friends that said that the ball is in Vanek's court pretty much, and I completely disagree with that. They don't think that this is on Snow. I think this is all on Snow and Wong.
Yes.
This is all on them. Are you willing to offer a market value contract? Are you willing to offer the money that it's going to require? Are you willing to front load a contract? Are you willing to break your perceived salary structure to get this player on the contract? The ball is always been in Garth Snow's court. This has nothing to do with Thomas Vanek and the ball being in his court because, quite frankly, he can just take this out to free agency. Even if he wants to stay with the Islanders, he can take this and go to market with it.
Right.
And take the opportunity to look at everything. A player usually only gets this once in their lifetime. And Thomas Vanek may want to take that opportunity, as much as he says that he wants to stay here, and if it gets to July 1st and all that, and it's all goodness. And the fact that he really enjoys it and stuff, I'm not surprised that he enjoys playing with Tavares and Oposo. Oposo's been phenomenal this year. That was one of the best things that could have happened for this team right now, is Oposo developing the way he can at 25. And Vanek coming in at this time, really enjoying his time playing with a first line that, let's face it, he hasn't had in years in Buffalo since Briere and Drury, have since gone. And I think that that's huge. The age of those two guys being as young as they are, the fact that Thomas Vanek is going to get a 7 or 8 year contract is huge. This is all on Snow and Wong.
Yeah.
Prove to us how serious you are. And then pair that up with a move at goal or a move at defense. It's got to be both, but I have a feeling that they'll only have one bullet left in the chamber if they do what's required to get Vanek.
And you know what? At that rate, if the Islanders do everything that they can do, then you know what? We can all look at this with a clean conscience and say they made a trade for a player that they thought would improve this team with the intention on re-signing him. They offered him the right deal, and he went elsewhere. But you know what? I think if they offer him the right deal, he's not going anywhere.
Now the point comes up from Andre, and you brought it up yourself, is a possibility if he's unsigned that he goes away at the deadline. And I know you wanted to mention...
The other thing that he said was, come July 1st, even if I'm traded, the Islanders are still on my list.
And that's very important. Because he knows the Islanders are his opportunity to get 8 years. He knows the Islanders are his opportunity to score as many points at will as he can. Okay? He knows that he'll be in a position to play with a player that'll be succeeding. And he even talked about how impressed he is. He goes, I've only competed against this guy, Tavares. I never watched him. He goes, every day at practice, every day, this, that, the other thing, off-ice sessions. He goes, this guy is a winner. And he knows what it takes to win. And Vanek knows that he feeds so well off of him, and this is a winning combination. I think it's huge that Vanek would be willing to go to another team via trade, and he would understand that, but that the Islanders, and he would have no hard feelings. It's a business.
And that's what he said was, I would understand if they traded me because they gave up a lot to get me.
Right. And he's a guy who understands the business and knows about building a team and knows what it takes to be a successful team. If the Islanders are getting a good piece, that he knows that if he wants to come back, he could come back. Now, having known that absolutely, I think a player would take that opportunity. But it's going to be a little, sort of like with, on a lesser extent, the guy used to be a star, wasn't at this point in time of his career when he was traded, but like Keith Tkachuk did. For me, the thing that scares me is that the Islanders read too much into he doesn't want to sign before the trade deadline bit. Because just because a player doesn't want to sign before the trade deadline doesn't mean that he's absolutely gone.
Yeah, don't jump the shark.
And that's what I'm afraid of. I think if anything happens, Vanek's going to indicate that he would be willing to stay here long term, but it may not happen before the trade deadline. I think the Islanders are going to end up holding him, and if anything, move him with days before July 1. Which is unfortunate because it means that he'll probably sign with another team.
Right.
But he sounds like a guy who may not be open to taking a contract right off the bat. But if he seems to be happy or he thinks that things are going in the right direction, I don't see the Islanders any need to trade him at the trade deadline, especially when you're trying to make this push.
Yeah.
If you're 5 points out,
why are you going to
can't
trade
make this move? Listen, the Islanders were for a few points out last year, and they couldn't make the move for Streit. And in the end, it was a good thing that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because it helped them make the playoffs. If the Islanders are within, still within 3 points of this playoff spot after the Olympic break, first of all, it's a really good spot to be in, especially when you have other teams like Pittsburgh and stuff that had all these players that went to these games, in Sochi. But I just don't see how you would be able to do that just because of the fear that the guy may not sign. If the guy indicates that he's open to signing and you throw out a number there and he goes, boy, that got my attention, or that's about what I'm looking for, I think you have to keep working at it. I don't think you just say, okay, well, we're going to trade you. Maybe you'll come back in the off season, because some team would probably do something different. Even though they can only offer 7 years, some team may do something. They'll offer more front load, and he goes, you know what, I kind of like that better. My kids are young. I want to, set them up and get my house started and this and that.
Not doing anything that a father wouldn't do.
Right.
This, he wouldn't be wrong in doing so.
And for all talk about Minnesota, there's rumors that they may have to go into some sort of rebuild of their own because they're very inconsistent.
They're inconsistent. They're underwhelming. And if they bring Vanek in, well, who else has to go? What other deficiency do they create by bringing him in? That's the question that nobody has asked, short of I think you and I.
Right.
Is what deficiency do they have because they bring in Thomas Vanek?
Right. With the Islanders, we kind of know what deficiency there will be because the fear is, of course, you spend all that money there, you don't go and spend it on a goaltender or on a defenseman that you need also. But this is the first move that has to happen. And obviously, with the Brooklyn, as we alluded to, with the Brooklyn idea coming up in 2 years, since they're not breaking the lease early, as we now know, that's a very real situation. This team becomes it's going to become very lucrative. Brooklyn is paying the Islanders to go there. This team is going to become very lucrative, and I think that it would be a crime to let this guy walk and then not fill out some of those other holes, or to let this guy walk and replace him with Ales Hemsky.
Especially
like
because this is the type of player, this is the type of splash that you would look to make your first year in Brooklyn. Okay, well, you already have that player.
Right.
So why are you going to risk being, because you don't know who's going to go to free agency. Kessel signs an extension. Phaneuf signs an extension. Thornton signs an extension. Marleau signs an extension. Pominville signs an extension. Okay, those are 5 guys that came off the market before we even got to the trade deadline. Forget free agency. So why are you going to roll the dice to try to get a Thomas Vanek player when you already have Thomas Vanek?
Right, right. So it comes down to what we've been saying the last few weeks. I don't think that it takes this team to make the playoffs to make him stay. I don't think that, all of that is minor noise. If you're going to offer him, and then Vanek comes out and says it himself, which is a great thing, because I love the fact that he's as honest as he is. This is a guy who's proven that he can be a leader. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, people talk about, he's so nonchalant, he's so this, he's kind of quiet, but when you ask him a question, he's very direct about it. And that's always been Thomas Vanek. And if you read his blog that he keeps on his website, and you read his comments that he made last night, he's very frank. And I think that that is very important because he's a guy who, if young players are getting too heady or whatever, he'll tell it like it is. Oh, it was a good win, but we have to do some more work. Well, it was this and that. Well, I think that if we were the Pittsburgh Penguins, we would have had that call, but because, quite frankly, I don't see a kicking motion. And I think that is very important for this team, too. And to me, those intangibles are a reason why I'm also willing to pay a little bit more to keep Thomas Vanek here. Yeah. Absolutely, I think that this is a must.
Yeah, there's no debate.
And I think that this ball, regardless of what other people are saying, I have to say I disagree. This ball is and always will be in Thomas Vanek's court. And that's the beauty of being an unrestricted free agent. Mm-hmm. And he's a guy who really enjoys having this power, I think. Any player would be nuts not to. But if the Islanders aren't willing to do it, there's going to be a team out there that'll probably pay him 8, maybe a little bit more than 8 on a 7-year deal.
My fear is that Snow was burned so badly because of the Smith trade. For players, that became nothing anyway.
For players, that became nothing.
I don't know why, but I feel like he's still burned because he couldn't re-sign that guy.
I think he is.
That he is going to be afraid to move past the trade deadline with Thomas Vanek if he's not under contract.
That's my fear, too. And that's my fear, too. And that's not the right attitude to have. Because this is a player who felt... I don't think Ryan Smith's heart was ever here. Forget about it. I mean, he enjoyed... He definitely was intense. He celebrated. He was very excited when the Islanders made the playoffs, and you could see on his face he was trying to do all he could to win.
Watch his press conference. He never wanted to come here.
He never had... his heart never left Edmonton. And he even said that as much when he got traded there again 2 years ago, that his heart was always still there. Even though he went to the Kings and he went to Colorado and wherever else he played, his heart was never in those other places. And he was still crying when he went to Edmonton and he was on the Colorado Avalanche and he signed there as an unrestricted free agent. Yeah. So, I mean, his heart was always in Edmonton. And listen, for some players, that's fine. Thomas Vanek right now, his heart wasn't in Buffalo, okay? It's been there. He loved the place, but it wasn't in Buffalo the last 2 years given the direction they're going in. It's very hard, and he admitted it. When you look at his comments the day he was traded here, it was very hard to get up for it, and he even said as much. He goes, I love Buffalo. I love the place. I love the thing. He goes, some people said we would hate it. He said, people said we would hate Buffalo, and I like that. And But for me, he said, I'm not at the point where I want to be on a rebuilding team. Very honest about it. And listen, most players would say that. Ryan Miller's made it clear. So when I look at that, I take to heart that he says he really likes it here. He's got his family here. They're going to look at Long Island, this and that. They've enjoyed it. A lot of people said that we've taken the train to the city, and that's really cool, and this and that, and things like that. And you know, I think that's why it was important that the Islanders trade for him when they did. If Ryan Smith had all that opportunity to see things like that, maybe things would be different. You know, some players leave the only situation they know, and Vanek admitted it was hard, but you know, at the same time, Buffalo wasn't going in the direction that he was looking for, and it was a mutual understanding. And you know, he says it's tough. You know, they played, and he even said they played 4 or 5 teams in the lineup this year. He says one of the first times ever that happened. He goes, and listen, it's great for the future of Buffalo. You get a glimpse of that. He goes, but that's not what I'm looking for. The Islanders, in theory, should not be looking to do anything like that, and are at the point where they should be offering up the kind of. It's going to be a bad contract, no matter what. It's a terrible contract.
Yes.
Let's not forget that. But the New York Islanders need a contract like that. They need that Brian Campbell signing.
Right.
This is the best guy to do it on, because he's going to produce what you need on that top line, which you haven't had. The Islanders didn't even have a top line winger for Alexei Yashin. This would be the first time that the Islanders would have had that good complementary scoring winger that they've needed in about, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years.
And you know what? If you front load it the way you're supposed to, when he's in his twilight years, when maybe you don't want him anymore, you move him, because a team will take on a cap-friendly salary for a veteran player on a young team.
You're going to find a team that would want that name.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the big question. Will the Islanders hold on to him at the deadline or not? I go both ways on this.
I hope so.
Andre thinks, if the Filament Designs on Twitter thinks if he's not so sure he agrees with us, they'll move him. You know, that he thinks if they're close, they'll hold on to him. I would certainly hope so. I mean, going by what the Islanders did last year, because they could have gotten a locker for Mark Streit. There should be no reason, if they're close to the playoffs, close to a contract extension with him, that they move him. I just don't think some people freak out about if this is not done by the deadline that Snow would move him. And I think that's it is a real risk, because this is different. This isn't Mark Streit. This is Thomas Vanek. This is a scoring winger. Guy who has the ceiling to do 40 goals a year. He's only on pace for about 33 now.
And left wingers are a premium in this league.
Absolutely. That's where the fear comes into play. Are the Islanders willing to give him that contract? If not, are they willing to move him rather than try and make the playoffs? I think it all comes back to Snow and Wong. And we'll see. This is the player, though, that you need.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we get back, it's sin bin time, because there is really nothing to say about Andrew McDonald's ridiculous contract. The one that he wants to get.
No, absolutely.
Except he's not going to get it.
Absolutely. I can't imagine any team wanting to give him that contract.
No. You're listening to NYIFYI on NYIFYI.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Just find NYIFYI in the iTunes store and hit subscribe.
Hey guys, it's Sean, and you've been listening to me talk about Cardboard Memories in Comac for years. A lot of you have checked it out, and that's awesome. But for those of you who haven't, what are you waiting for? Cardboard Memories has everything you want. Sports memorabilia, movie memorabilia. He's got old press passes, old pins, if you're into collecting that kind of thing. If you need something authenticated, Scott is the guy to go to. I guarantee it. Look, I've added a ton of stuff to my collection, and there's nowhere else I'd rather shop than Cardboard Memories in Comac, in the Pepper Tree Commons. They got all the info right now at cardboardmemories.com. You've got to check them out.
Have a question? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a comment? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a concern? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Need a date for the night? You might want to look somewhere else. But when it comes to hockey, let your voice be heard. Check out the forum at NYIFYI.com. Chat with hockey fans from all over the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Membership is free, so log on and be heard. The forum at NYIFYI.com.
Jack of All Trades Productions, Long Island's premier full-service post-production company, specializing in wedding videos, corporate videos, music videos, and film. Jack of All Trades Productions is there for all your post-production needs. Jack of All Trades Productions uses Avid Media Composer to bring finesse and style to your project, with experience in color correction, as well as sound editing and design. For more information, log on to JackieZo.com. That's JackieZo.com. Again, that's JackieZo.com. Jack of All Trades Productions.
The NYIFYI Sin Bin, presented by Cardboard Memories in Comac. Cardboard Memories is located in the Pepper Tree Commons on the corner of Jericho Turnpike and Comac Road. More info at cardboardmemories.com. Here's Sean and Chris.
This one's easy for me. It's been easy for me 3/4 of the season. It's Andrew McDonald. You're in. You're probably never coming out.
No, this is going to be tough for me.
And the only reason why you got in over Bailey is because Bailey scored on a breakaway and was able to finish at least one of his plays this week.
Well, yeah,
despite the fact that he dogs most of his plays on the ice.
I'm still back and forth with the two of them, but it's got to be one of those guys. Other guys are trying to find a way to contribute in a positive way. Andrew McDonald did make some really nice defensive plays that did save games. He saved at least one situation for the Islanders this week.
Well, save one, cost you another.
Well, yes, that's true. I think I still got to go with Bailey.
You're go with Bailey.
Forget it. I can't. This is a guy that I see bringing down the rest of his line. The thing that gets me too is I kind of want to give like an honorable mention to like a Franz Nielsen because these guys are losing key faceoffs, and that's driving me nuts. The losing of key faceoffs too. Cizikas, Nielsen, they're not as good as they probably should be on these. Even Tavares isn't, as consistent as he should be on them. That for me is a big problem. His faceoffs this year.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Bailey this week again.
All right, you're going with Bailey, and I'm going with Amac. All right, so a little difference there, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
This is a friendly show.
Yes. All right, so the big Yankee Stadium game coming up this week. If you go, stay warm because I'm hearing the game time temperature is supposed to be like a degree.
Yeah, one lone degree. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of cold.
Yeah. Still debating whether I'm going or not. I don't know. We'll see.
Just getting over the sickness. I don't know if I should go out and sit outside in freezing cold a week after, or just days after getting over this flu, cold, what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of in debate mode too.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like a lot of people are.
Yeah.
A lot of people really are.
Of the other day, some tickets, and they get snatched up quick. But tickets were falling into the $45 range.
Yeah,
down from $90.
Some prices still seem to be going down, which is, as we said last week, you got to keep looking. It's a fun experience. I know a lot of people made fun of the whole Los Angeles Anaheim thing, but I watched that last night and I thought that was kind of fun. It was unique. It was kind of fun. The fans enjoyed it. The players ate it up. They made it work. I don't care how hot it is there. They made it work. It was fun. It was different. It was unique. All the celebrities and stuff were out there. They seem to get a kick out of it. Brian Wilson is still a nut, as we all know.
He's insane.
But I think it's cool that people got, anything that grows the game of hockey, I'm a big fan for because I think it's unfortunate that this game isn't bigger. And when it comes to trying to get out of that ESPN shadow of, I must watch basketball 24/7 because ESPN covers it, is a great thing. So I'm all for this kind of, and I'm not happy that the NHL went with 17 games outdoors or whatever it is this year, but I think it's cool to grow the game to those guys that are on the fence that don't pay as much attention to it. So definitely a fun time, and as much as I poo-pooed it earlier in the year, it's something that seems exciting.
Yeah. It just comes down to whether I want to spend the
I
money
hope our
or not.
prediction is wrong for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It does come. Do I want to spend my? Do I want to spend the money?
I don't care about being cold. I've gone to the Winter Classic.
You have. You've gone to football games. You've gone to the Winter Classic.
It's just a matter of I got bills to pay.
Well, that's.
So am I going to go to the game?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. It's not just the ticket to the game. It's the $20 in gas, the $15 in tolls. I hear they're charging $50 for parking.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden a $45 ticket just cost another $75.
And that's the thing. And that's why I don't get to go to Yankee Stadium as often with baseball season because it's difficult.
Yeah.
God help me trying to get a ticket this year. They're probably going to jack those prices up once again.
Yeah. All right, that's going to be for us this week. For Chris Hessel, I'm Sean Croft. We're all Islanders, and we'll see you guys next week.